Hello everyone. Today's chess video is going to be all about isolated pawns. It is a very important chess concept which you really need to learn. So without further ado, let's look at it and understand what is it. Okay, so this is an example of an isolated pawn. So an isolated pawn has no neighbors with it. As you can see, these pawns have neighbors. This pawn has one neighbor, this pawn has two neighbors, and these pawns are also neighbors. But this pawn has no neighbors. So you can identify an isolated pawn like this. Okay, so our first question is an isolated pawn good or bad? So, and the answer is it is not so bad, but yes, it is a little bad. It can be very loose at sometimes because it has no pawns to protect it. See, pawns are like sticks. As you might have heard, that if you try to break one stick, it can be easily broken. But if you take a bunch of sticks, it's difficult to break it. Pawns are like that. If there are a bunch of pawns, they can support each other and will not break easily. But if there is a single pawn with no neighbor, it can be broken easily. So isolated pawns are just like that. To understand them better, we are going to look at two games with isolated pawns of very good players, grandmasters. Okay, so let's look at our first game, which is between Michael Adams and Predar Nikolic. So this is a moment in where after 1 to 2 moves, we are going to reach an isolated pawn. So after here, white plays d captures c5, b captures c5, takes, and now guys, as you can identify it, we have two isolated pawns here, the c pawn and the a pawn. Now see, the c pawn is more easier to attack because you have an open file. Okay, I forgot mentioning one more point. See, it's difficult to attack isolated pawns when the file is not open, because in isolated pawn positions the main idea is to double or even triple up your rooks and queen to target this pawn and win it, because isolated pawns are so loose. Okay, so this is the harder one to attack and this is the easier one. So first white plays rook a1 because of defending the pawn, but as I move forward, you will slowly see how white manages to win this pawn. So we have knight to e5, developing a piece. I mean, that's a good move. We have queen c3, as I told you, lining up here. Knight d7, trying to defend. We have knight e3, attacking the bishop. We have bishop back to b7 because it got attacked. Now we have bishop back to g2. I don't know what that move does. Maybe it was trying to protect any checks. I don't know. And then we have rook to b8, trying to maybe remove the bishop and have an attacks sort of here. And then we have rook d2, trying to go to c2. As I told you, try and double and triple up your pieces to get this pawn. And we have f6, rook c1, knight b6, rook c2, and see, as I told you, white has tripled its pieces to get this pawn. Okay, so now we have knight to d7, trying to defend the pawn. Then we have queen a3, attacking the pawn and also pressuring this pawn. It's a very good move. And we have again rook to a8, trying to defend the pawn. See, the advantages of having your opponent the disadvantages of having an isolated pawn is you have to have your pieces defending the pawn, whereas white can do anything he wants. He can even go for the isolated pawn or he can do anything. But as black, see, your pieces are only defending the isolated pawn. You have no activity, whereas white can play any move of his choice and try and start his attack. As you can see, black's pieces are trying to defend the pawn from various possibilities, but white can do anything he wants. So white is much better here. So we have knight to f1. Again, as you can see, this move was this knight was blocking the bishop. Sorry, and after the knight moves, we have one more attacker, and rook to a5 adds one more defender. And we have knight to d2, trying to get in maybe 94, and it's a very good move because you're getting a knight into the game. We have e5, e4, king h8, bishop h3, and rook d8. And black was like tired now of defending this pawn, so he let the pawn go. But he did not take it right away. He played knight f1. I do not know what that move does. Like then we have rook back to a8. I don't know what is black doing. Just shuffling his rooks back and forth. Then we take. Now, guys, as you can see, white has managed to win this isolated pawn, and this was a very clean game. And now, as you can see, the game later progresses, and because you have an extra pawn, and at this level, when you have an extra pawn, it is very hard to win games when you are a pawn down. So, all these trades happen, and here black resigned because this pawn could never become a queen, and because there were two extra pawns with white, he resigned. Or not two extra pawns because of the piece. So now let's move on to our second game. And here around this moment, so first let me introduce the players. We have Didlak, Dariana Gabriela, and Cosma Elena Lumita. These are two very strong female players, and let's start. So firstly, after these two moves, we have an isolated pawn here. So let's see how Elena Lumita wins this pawn. So we have bishop to f1, already trying to pressure this pawn. So we have knight to e7. I do not know what this move does, but did not take. She went for rook c7 for the activity of the rook here, and we have bishop f6 defending the knight. Rook to b7, and here we have one more tip for you. So the thing is, rooks on 7th rank and rooks on 2nd rank are very dangerous. If the white rooks have reached the 2nd rank, and if the black rooks have reached to the 2nd rank, it's very dangerous because they are very close to the king, and these rooks can create a lot of damage on this rank. So, and the idea also behind this move is to get rook a7. So we have king f8 trying to defend the knight. We have bishop b4, a very smart move, putting pressure on the pinned piece. And these are one of the principles against the pinned piece. So as you can see, this piece is pinned to the king. So you apply more and more pressure to try and win the game or win that piece. And we have rook e8 supporting, but now we have bishop captures a6, rook h5. That is a blunder because now we have bishop e2 attacking the rook. Rook goes back, and we have bishop bishop f3. Sorry, and after like rook f5, we play bishop c6 attacking the rook, and now the rook has to move, and we win the knight and we win the game. But after that, there was bishop e4 played, attacking the rook. I don't know why. And after this, there were a couple of trades, and white is up a bishop, and after some moves, this was the position, after which black resigned because, as you can see, it's simply winning for white. So let's summarize it. So to attack an isolated pawns, you need to have open files and add as much pressure as you can and try to win those isolated pawns, because they can be very important at the end, and people at like average rating of like from like 800 to 1600 might not know about these topics, so you can have a huge advantage by winning these pawns and winning these games. So thank you so much for being here till the end. Please like, share and subscribe, and tell me in the comments which video do you want next. Bye bye.